Visit us on onestepenglish.com. Hello. Welcome to
English as a Second Language Crash Course of One Step English. Young children whose home language is not English, and now learning a new one, are starting a new developmental pathway that leads to the development of skills in a second language. Researchers have noted a consistent developmental sequence for young children learning a second language. First, there may be a period of time when children continue to use their home languages in learning a second language. Second, when their home language doesn't work in this situation, children enter a nonverbal period as they collect information about the new language, and spend some time in sound experimentation. Third, children begin to use individual words and phrases in the new language. And, fourth, children begin to develop productive use of the second language. Young children in a situation where others around them speak a different language only have two options: continue to speak, or stop talking. In a study involving 40 second language learning children, ranging in age from 18 months to 12 years, Saville-Troik found that 3 to 7-year-old children were willing to engage in what she terms dilingual discourse for some time after arriving in a setting in which a different language was spoken. Dilingual discourse means that the children continued to speak their home language, as if those around them could understand them. Those around them often did answer them using the language that the children could not understand. According to Saville-Troik, this form of communication was generally effective for achieving desired ends when the children were involved in play, especially when there were objects to be manipulated, when context alone did not suffice for meaning to be inferred. However, the response to an unintelligible verbalization was frequently a blank look.
Do you know what this is?
Egg.
This is an egg. An egg. And what do we do with an egg?
You cook it. In a pan.
You cook it. In a pan.
我们吃了。
Right. And we call this an egg.
如果我们不使用冰箱，小鸟就会出来。
Right. That's an egg.
In this case, the teacher responds to Chinese comments, even though she cannot understand what he has said. Saville-Troik reports that this sort of exchange occurred most frequently with teachers. Successful bilingual discourse was not a common feature of child-child communication. The nonverbal period. First, nonverbal period is also known as silent or mute period. Second, in an English language classroom, the children will enter a period when they do not talk at all. Third, in a bilingual classroom, the children will only attempt to talk with those who speak their home language, and will no longer try to talk with those who do not. Fourth, this mute or silent period seems to be a consistent feature of many young children's experiences in second language situations. There seems to be an age component to the length of time that children spend in this period. The younger children maintain their muteness for lengthier periods than the older children. Nonverbal communication. The realization that they could not communicate with those around them in their home language meant that they stopped talking. But this did not necessarily mean that they stopped communicating. Nonverbal period because children may not produce utterances but most engage in various forms of nonverbal communication with those who do not speak their home language. The use of nonverbal communication makes it possible for second language learning children to be communicative even before they can use the verbal forms appropriate for various situations. Second language learning children use nonverbal behavior most often to accomplish one of the following. 1. Attention getting. 2. Requesting. 3. Protesting. Or, 4. Joking. Attention getting. One of the most typical attention getters used by the second language learning children in the classroom involved holding up or showing an object to another person. Note that, not all nonverbal attempts at attention getting were successful. Frequently, when nonverbal attention getters were used with other children, there was no uptake from the person whose attention was being sought. Requesting. There were many times when the second language learning children needed help with something they were doing, or with a problem they were having with another child. Note that it is up to the adult in the situation to know what it is that is being requested, because the amount of information that is being provided by the second language learning child is extremely minimal. If the kind of help that a second language learning child needs is not available, the child has only two choices: try to do it without help, or forget about it. Protesting. It was also necessary for the second language learning children to let other people know that they were not happy with a particular situation. Note that, just as with attention getting and requesting, sometimes a protest is not interpretable, and it is difficult for those around to help. Joking. It was also possible for second language learning children to communicate non-verbally by doing funny things that other people would find amusing. Note that this kind of activity, joking game, was so successful that it had a tendency to become a continuing saga with the children, and helped them get into contact with each other and other members of the classroom. Imitating nonverbal behavior. Nonverbal communication was so pervasive that even one English-speaking child seemed to adopt the behavior. Trying to get a message across non-verbally is an appropriate early strategy in second language settings. Most young children, in these circumstances, seem to be able, unself-consciously, to call this strategy into play when necessary. Social consequences of nonverbal communication. There are also social consequences to continuing to use nonverbal behaviors. As long as the second language learning children remained predominantly nonverbal, they were treated like infants by the English-speaking children, or ignored as if they were invisible. In order to truly join in the activities as social equals, second language learning children need to begin to start using the new language. Children not only devise ways of communicating non-verbally but also begin to gather information about the new language that is being spoken around them. This data gathering operation consists of two strategies: spectating and rehearsing. Spectating refers to active observations by the second language learning children when they are in proximity to English speakers and are focusing on the language that is being used. Rehearsing refers to verbalizations by the second language learners that did not appear to be communicative, but that indicated these children were working on producing English. Second language learning children used repetition as part of the rehearsing process. The younger children usually repeated the end of an utterance that they heard near them, but the older children sometimes repeated more extensive phrases. The children also had other uses for this type of speech, including connecting English words with appropriate objects, actions, or situations, or incorporating English and dual language utterances, as if explaining the meanings to themselves. During this nonverbal period, the young second language learners were beginning to quietly unravel the patterns of the new language in their environment. Sound experimentation. Young second language learners must develop phonological control over their second language. Some of the rehearsing behavior observed included practice with the different sounds of the new language, as well as practice with vocabulary and grammar. Children are sensitive to the sounds of language. Young children acquiring a second language are likely to attain native-like pronunciation in the new language. Whereas, older learners may attain fluency in the language, but are less likely to have a native-like accent, even after years of contact with the second language. Young children focused extensively on the sounds of the second language, and seem to relate to the kinesthetics of pronouncing certain words. The second language learning children showed a growing understanding of the sounds and intonation of English. Strings of sounds were being used by the children. They did not have enough English to express the full idea in their new language, so they used what they had. Early in the second language learning process, children may be able to use the ability to mimic the sounds of a new language in a variety of ways. Conclusion. During the nonverbal period, second language learning children are not yet speaking the new language that is being used in the environment around them and begin to collect data about that new language. Although the children use nonverbal means to communicate their needs, they also use spectating and rehearsing techniques to tune into the new language. Once they feel sufficiently comfortable and competent in this new setting, second language learning children begin going public with what they have learned.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.